Right, this one is live. Right, it's 7 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Democracy and Standards Committee meeting of North Northants Council on Monday the 25th of November 2024 at 7 p.m. in the Council Chamber at the Corby Cube, George Street, Corby. Are there any apologies for absence?
Yeah, I have apologies from Councillors Carter, Fedorovic and Jelly.
Thank you. Are there any members' declarations of interest that have not already been recorded in the Register of Interests? I see no indication of them, therefore we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the last meeting of this committee, the previous meeting that is. Are there any substantive omissions or errors in them? Okay, can I have a proposal that we accept them and a seconder? All those in favour of accepting these as a true record of the meeting? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. I will sign the minutes. I think many of the people here are members of town councils. That's not something you need to declare at this point. Right, now to the substantive matters tonight. Item 5 on the agenda, Polling District and Polling Place Review 2024 final recommendations. This has gone through a number of different stages of consultation, and I'm aware of a number of issues that were found, and I believe they've now been addressed. And Ms. Heather, are you prepared to present your report?
Sorry, evening everybody. Okay, so you will have received the report. The review was initiated in response to the changes to the North Northamptonshire Council ward boundaries and also some changes to parish ward boundaries as well. What we're actually looking to do is to have a scheme of polling districts and polling places that actually now align with those new boundaries. So we began the consultation on the 19th of August and we have published some initial draft proposals for people to comment on. They were published on the website and also were circulated, I believe, as well. Those draft initial proposals also included the remarks and recommendations of the acting returning officer as well. We also published, I believe, a map, which was a sort of an interactive map, which there were some limitations with that map, but in theory you should have been able to see the arrangements that were in place currently and also what the initial draft proposals were as well. After we'd actually done that, we had another period of consultation in case there were any further comments that we could use to actually feed into the final recommendations. So we did various different things and we also, I think, invited members to actually attend some drop-in sessions if they wish to, just to chat through those proposals as they were at that stage. So we're now, as you'll see from the report, we're at the stage where we've now actually got those final recommendations and this is, I think, what you're actually going to be looking into this evening and this is what we're looking for you to make a decision on. Thank you.
I've got a particular question about this. In the Rushton Lakes ward, there are 2 notches where bits of Hyam Ferrers poke into Rushton. They're not connected, so that means they're separate wards for the town council level. Now, how will the town council seats be split between these new wards?
So that's actually designated within the actual electoral changes order. which I think we've actually circulated previously. Well, we circulated a link to that previously to councillors. So within that order, it sets out how many councillors there will actually be for each of the parish wards.
At the town council level?
Town council wards, yeah.
Oh, I need to look at that then.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments or questions at this stage? Are you going to press your button, Councillor Lawman?
I was waiting for you to call me before I press my button. Right. I've got a number. Perhaps I'll do the one ward at a time. And obviously it's a bit parochial because I don't know the polling stations up and down the whole place if I stick to the ones that local to me. Is there it may be because there's a maximum number for each polling station, but it just seems a bit, if I start with Brickhill alphabetically, that we've got four polling stations within a few hundred yards of each other, 5 if you include that. So how set is it that it has to be in each polling district, and is there a maximum? Because somewhere like Glamis Hall has got a lot of room and could easily cope. And again, and one of them, in fact, 2 of the ones are schools, which we would, I'm sure, like to avoid if we could. And I mean, I could, you know, not using Ruskin might be a benefit. I'll do them one at a time, yeah.
Are we addressing them one by one? Each, yeah.
Is that the completion of the question, Councillor Lawman?
Other wards I've got questions on, so that's all on Brickhill.
So, do you want an answer to that now?
Well, might as well do them one at a time.
If you can deal with that one.
Okay. So there's no actual set limit as such on the number of electors that can be allocated to a polling station. However, we are guided by Electoral Commission guidance, which actually, they do actually specify some suggested ratios of how many electors to actually have to a polling station. In terms of some of these polling stations within this map, what we'll find is that we may have one or more polling stations actually indicated on the map that are within the same polling district, but in actual fact there will be electors who are outside of the polling district that have actually been allocated to some of those polling stations.
It seems each district seems to have it, but it just seemed that it was a bit of overkill and just trying to save us money and cost of the elections.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I think we're working on similar ratios to what we've actually used in the elections that we've actually just held. We felt that those actually went quite well, and we didn't feel that we needed to reallocate electors too much based on those elections. So some of these polling districts will not have actually changed very much from the actual original one that was actually there.
So the next one I've got is Croyland Swanspool. It's maybe in the map you've given us and on the map that there was linked to in the papers. The star is on the old what was the Ibis Hotel, but I noticed in some of the paperwork you've got the Priory, so I'm not sure which it is. So some of the things out of and I mean, historically, there's always been a lot of complaints about Wren School being and the access. Where it is down a long drive, there's no parking there unless the school decides to open it up for one of their car parks, which they generally. That has been problematical. You know, I've actually been a councillor for this ward, and you know, we had before, and we had comments, and I noticed in the paperwork still comments, particularly if you're disabled. It's a long way to the polling station. I don't know, have we thought about another? I noticed there were some comments that Swanspool Pavilion could be used. That's not being used, and that's got plenty of room and it's got parking. So I don't know if you've given consideration to that.
Yeah, so in terms of the Priory, some of the markings for the polling stations that are actually on the map, some of them are historic ones, to be honest with you. So it does show the hotel, but actually it is the Priory that we're actually, because we can't get to, we can't actually get access to the other building. So it is definitely the Priory on that. In terms of Wren School, I think the reason we were using the pavilion was because of access actually into the school and not disrupting the school, if we could help it. But like I say, we did get those feedback items, and Swanspool Pavilion was one of those items. So we can look into actually whether or not that would be available and suitable to be used as a polling station in the future.
So another thing on Croyland, that day, obviously we're looking at May the 1st, Castle have got their 30th anniversary celebrations, and a big show, enormous show for 3 days. So have you checked with them that I presume you're using the studio, that it's going to be available, because there could be some doubt about it.
We're actually just in the process of actually starting to contact polling stations at the moment, so that's work that we're actually just starting with, so we will have a conversation with them about that. Yeah.
Okay, and the last one's Hatton Park, and of course there's a bit of confusion here because Glenvale Park and it's being in Daventry, but on the appendix, it's got the wrong, the wording on the districts doesn't correspond with the map. So let's find the right page. And some of the narrative doesn't correspond correctly. So it's got HPH as having a reference to Glenvale Park. Well, HPH, according to the map, doesn't go into Glenvale Park. And then it's got HPI, again, that doesn't go into Glenvale Park, but no mention of HPJ, which is actually the one that's got the bottom half of Glenvale Park. So some of that is...
Yeah, I have actually, when we actually came to do the maps, there is actually an amendment to actually go on for that one, which I can actually circulate round to members for that one. But that was actually just a labelling one. Originally, HPJ didn't have a code on it, so obviously it's been allocated HPJ. And that is just to make sure that we've actually got a polling district there, because of where that Daventry constituency actually goes. But I've got an amendment to that I can actually circulate round to people. It's just a labelling. It's a labelling issue. It's not actually changing the polling district itself.
And it's a little unclear. HPB, which is Redhill Grange, is showing on this list as going to Glenvale Primary School, because that's in Daventry as well. But HPA, and going to Glenvale Primary School, there is also a community centre there, but which is due to open in the near future, so that may be a better option. But then it is a community, Glenvale Park, but then HPJ, you're suggesting they cross the main road historically, which seems a bit daft when the spine road through the estate. And I appreciate the different constituencies, but in terms of the town council and the unitary council elections, it would just seem sensible to go to the same one. And historically, Redhill Grange has gone to the Auchendoe, and there's no footpath along Neale Way between Redhill Grange and Glenvale Park. So there is an underpass across to where the Auchendoe is, and a proper footpath. So historically, they've always gone there. I'm concerned about the accessibility for people from Redhill Grange going to Glenvale Park, because it's just not there's no way you can walk it. You'd have to drive, it's you know, in terms of accessibility, not the same. So I was concerned. Also, you've got in HPD, I think it is, the Hope Centre. The Hope Centre's had a planning application approved for rebuilding it. So it may, again, if they're doing those construction works, and I don't know the timescale, then that may be something that, you know, to rule that one out. I think most of the, I mean, again, the Hope Centre is only a couple of 100 yards from the Hemwell Community Centre, and it just, you know, so there's an easy fallback there. So those are my bits on Hatton.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, obviously we can take that feedback away, and obviously we can have a look at that. And if we need to bring it back to committee, we can do that in the future.
Will there be an opportunity for any amendments after today's vote if you decide they're necessary?
I have to defer to Camilla, I think, on that one.
Chair, I believe there is a delegation within that report. If not, I'm just going to double check.
I was going to suggest that we accept this with the proviso, an amendment, that the head of electoral services, working with the chief legal officer, all right, in consultation with the chair, can make minor amendments to correct it. Does that sound reasonable? Camilla, does it sound reasonable to you?
Yes, Chair, I was just looking through the recommendation there, and just for clarity, there is a 3.5 authorises the Director of Law and Governance to make changes to the above-mentioned polling places order only in the event that a change is needed to a polling district or place at short notice, or there is insufficient time for the change to be considered by the Standards and Democracy Committee. It could be argued that that would fall within that delegation, but for completeness, you may wish to insert an additional recommendation that any further amendments to be made by the Director of Law and Governance in consultation with the Chair of Democracy and Standards.
I think everyone in this room will be more comfortable with that. So I would like to propose that we amend the recommendation to have that extra codicil. Is there a second of it? There is. All those in favour of that amendment? Yeah, I thought that would be the case. Right. With that consideration, I think that we can accept this because most of the problems that I've heard about earlier have now been... Oh, sorry, I didn't realise your hand was up. I thought you were just scratching. Sorry. My apologies, Councillor Maxwell.
Right, okay, College Street. You've got College Street as a place for the polling, but next door to opposite there is a primary school and a junior school, and parking is just a nightmare.
Which College Street are you referring to? There's several.
This is in Earthlinborough. So clearly, I'm saying that this, apart from you've got double yellow lines there along this road, you know, you've got parents parking and everything else like that. It's just disabled, absolutely almost non-existent. You've got a fire station next door to it, and there's only 3 places for disabled people in the actual College Street car park. I just don't think that this is suitable. It may be initially, but it isn't now. It's not suitable.
Which polling station are you referring to?
In College Street in Earthlinborough.
Okay. Yeah, it is close to a school, and yeah, parking is difficult, but I'm not sure there's an alternative. Was there an alternative?
We haven't managed to identify an alternative yet, but if anybody is aware of an alternative, we can certainly go and have a look at it and assess it for suitability.
Well, I think we need to have an alternative because we don't want to shut the school down. That's the thing. But
yeah,
then,
which is, I suspect, is why we're actually using the College Street.
Which would be an issue. And I think that it's I think whereas perhaps in the past it was okay, but it's certainly not okay now. It's just, you're talking about roughly 500 children going to the two schools,
Yeah.
and with their parents. It's just...
Yeah,
a
I mean, we can
nightmare.
certainly have a look and see if there is an alternative
Right.
in the vicinity. Like I say, if you've got any suggestions, we're quite happy to go out and have a look at them.
I'll look at
Yeah,
something
yeah.
instead. And then in Crow Hill, I found this a bit odd. They were saying about people with a disability, an issue over parking there. Well, there is no issues up at Crow Hill regarding disabilities in Earthling Borough, because there's plenty of space for parking up there. That's just not an issue. So I don't know who's brought that one up. And then in Kingscliff, in the Oundle ward, you've got that. Now, I actually do agree with this. There is access to Kingscliff Village Hall. Now, I don't know if you know it, but it's sort of like, it's the back of these houses. So you go down there behind these houses, but it's very difficult to turn around and come back again, if you understand me. And as for disabled, it's not accessible, actually, really, for disabled people as such. I mean, you could drop them off, but then where you're going to park, it's... I think that's... they're saying there's a steep slope on the approach, but I just think access to this, it's just like going down a dirt track, actually, to go around the village hall at the back. So I think that needs looking at again. I think we need to think of an alternative venue.
Which polling station was this?
This is Oundlewall. This is Kingscliff Village Hall. Do you remember it's at the back?
I know Kingscliff.
You go down this dirt track, and then you turn left, and then as you turn left, you go along another dirt track, as I call it, and you come to the village hall, and it's just, it hasn't changed. It's still the same, I think. And then trying to then do a 3-point turn to come back again, that you then would then end up by meeting the traffic coming down as you're trying to get back. It's not good at all, actually. I think that needs to be readdressed, actually. Maybe we need to come up with, not to use the school, however. I don't think that would be a good idea.
I have to say, it's a good 10 years since I've been to that part of Kingscliff, so I can't remember it. So I'm relying upon members and officers about this. Heather, are you aware of this situation?
Yeah, so we are aware that there is a potential alternative for Kingscliff, and I do believe it has been used before, which is actually detailed in the report, the alternative. I think it's the Kingscliff Active Cafe.
The cafe's not open anymore now.
Oh, okay.
No,
That was
the
the
cafe's
feedback that
gone.
we'd actually received,
Oh,
was about
no.
using the cafe.
No, it's shut down.
Oh,
We've got
okay.
a pub.
I mean, we can go back
got-
to the venue and have a look and
Yeah,
see
the
whether or
pub
not
would-
there is anything
is
else
quite
there.
good.
Yeah. The what, sorry?
The pub. I think that
Yeah.
has-
We would only use a public house as a last resort, to be
Would
honest
you?
with you, where there literally is no
Right.
other venue actually
Yeah.
in the vicinity.
No,
Yeah.
anyway, the cafe's gone.
Oh, okay. Well,
And-
we can take another look at it as part of
Yeah.
this list. Yeah. Yeah.
I think this is one of those situations where if someone comes up with a better idea, it's one of those that we can fix by the delegation. But it seems that there isn't a better idea at the moment.
Well, it's not good at the moment. No, I mean, it'd just be a nightmare. And it's got worse because obviously the population's got much greater. You've got that massive estate in Kingscliff, and that's added to this problem. Whereas before, when it wasn't there, this estate, it was different. But now it has got this massive estate. It's almost doubled in numbers, isn't it, Kingscliff?
Okay, well, as far as I
Yeah.
can see, that those issues can, if possible, be dealt with by the amendment to the recommendation that we've agreed. Are there any further comments? I thought No? Well, in that case then, can we have a proposer to accept the amended? Thank you. A seconder? Right. I am aware that all the members have voting cards at this moment. This shows the extent to which people will go to participate. All those in favour of the proposal then?
Well, I'd quite like, sorry,
You've
Chair, I'd like them to come back and tell me where they're going to put the polling stations in Kingscliff and College Street.
Well, we can ask the officers to keep you updated
Yeah.
on that, but
Yeah.
that motion is carried.
Very good.
We now move on to item 6, appointment of co-opted town and parish and parish representatives to the Democracy and Standards Committee, page 89. I think, Mr. Smith, you're dealing with this one, is that correct?
I am, thank you very much.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. So this report provides an update on the progress for the nomination and selection of appointment of co-opted town and parish councillors to this committee. So by way of background, in June of this year, we agreed as a committee to recruit to the 3 vacant co-opted councillor positions. Formal nominations were sought from the towns and parishes in August, and we were pleased to receive a total of 8 nominations. A formal election then ensued from 20th of September, with the time frame agreed to be extended by Democracy and Standards, and we then had a final closing date of 3rd of November. So in terms of the highest placed councillors in the election, Councillor Beth Ring of Weekly Parish Council, she received the highest number of votes with 10, and her biography is detailed in paragraph 4.6 of this report. Councillor Paul Davis of Oundle Town Council, he received the second highest number of votes with 8 received, and his biography is in paragraph 4.8 of the report. Then, in terms of third place, 3 councillors were equal on 7 votes. So having consulted with Councillor Mercer as Chair of Democracy and Standards, we decided the fairest way was to decide the third highest placed councillor by a drawing of lots. So I invited each of the 3 councillors to attend the Cube last Wednesday at 6 p.m. 2 of the councillors, Councillor Keith Gawtry-Prue of Dean and Deanthorpe Council and Councillor Vivian Wilkinson of Wellingborough Town Council were present. At that drawing of lots, it was Councillor Gawtry-Prue's name which was drawn at random, and so he is being presented to committee this evening as the third place councillor recommended for nomination. So in terms of his biography, he has worked as Head of Human Resources at both the Cabinet Office and the office of number 10 Downing Street. He's also a seasoned improvement practitioner with a career spanning over 4 decades. And that's included him embedding and sustaining cultural change within a number of different complex operational environments across a variety of sectors. So, subject to this committee's approval, the three nominees and their biographies will be presented to full council on 5th of December for approval. And that would be on the basis of initial term of office until May 25, with the provision to extend to May 2029, provided the co-opted member or members have been re-elected at the next local elections. And this would provide continuity of office and reduce the cost of a fully fledged recruitment process again in under a year's time. So I'll just refer you back to 3.1 of the recommendations, and I'll pass you back over to the Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I suggested that we determine the third place by drawing lots because that is the method used in parliamentary elections, and therefore I concluded it had a degree of legitimacy. I don't see that there was a problem with that. I would like to propose that we accept those 3 elected parish and town councillors. Councillor Brackenbury?
Sorry, can you just repeat the name of the third person, because I didn't catch that? The third candidate that's been put forward to go to full council.
Councillor Keith Gawtry-Prue, and he is of Dean and Deanthorpe Council.
Thank you.
Right, I'm hereby proposing that we accept those 3 nominations and recommend them to full council. Is there a seconder? All those in favour? Right, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Right, next, item 7, consultation on remote meetings and proxy voting. The new government has proposed to relax the rules that currently require all councillors to be present in person for council meetings and committee meetings. It was relaxed during COVID, then reimposed that requirement. Would you like to speak?
Chair, I know that you've followed this topic and were helpfully outlining the position pre-COVID. So as the report sets out there, the position relating to remote meetings, there was a ruling in court which determined that remote meetings would not be possible in local government without a change in legislation. On the 24th of October 2024, a consultation was opened by central government, run for 8 weeks, on the topic of remote meetings and proxy voting. This report is brought to you this evening to invite your views on a response to be submitted on behalf of the Council in respect of this consultation. I wish to emphasise that the feedback that is provided in this consultation will not be binding upon this authority. The consultation views will be taken in by national government, and should it be the will of the respondents to the consultation, it would require a change in legislation to facilitate remote meetings and proxy voting changes. That then would bring about a further report to be brought back to this committee for views on how those arrangements would operate for this council, and then presented to council for agreement on what the local arrangements are. So as I've said, I must emphasise that this would not bring about a change for this council. It's purely at this stage inviting views from this committee on the consultation, and the recommendations are set out at 3.1 to note the government consultation on the subject of remote meetings and proxy voting, to provide views on the consultation, to inform the response to be submitted on behalf of the council to the consultation, and finally to delegate authority to the monitoring officer in consultation with the Chair of Democracy and Standards to submit a response on behalf of the authority. Chair, that's the outline of the report, and I'll take any questions or observations.
Well, I'd like to first of all make a couple of comments. I thought that despite my initial fears, it turned out that during the COVID period the system worked quite well, and unlike MPs, we don't get expenses to have a flat close to the chamber where we're going to debate. Therefore, we have to travel, in some cases, 30, 40 miles through bad weather to get here. And tonight is a case in point where it was a pig to get here. Pardon? I said a pig. It was a pig of a journey. I thought that was common parlance. I think that allowing for online meetings for councils is something that I personally would support, because most of the public who watch these meetings do so online anyway. That camera up there is where most of our audience is, and I don't see why we should be different from the members of the public. But that's my personal view, and I'll open it up to the meeting. Councillor Marks was first, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have mixed feelings about remote meetings. I have very negative feelings about proxy voting. Proxy voting seems to me to invite abuse. The person's not there, they can't hear the debate. It's dubious, in my view, proxy voting.
Councillor Brackenbury, I think you were next.
I am pleased to see that the consultation highlights the attendance of elected members at local authority meetings being a core part of the democratic process. I wouldn't be very happy if we had most of our meetings by remote, but I can see that there are circumstances where it would allow meetings to take place which might not otherwise. For example, really severe weather, snow, flooding that some members couldn't get here. If somebody had broken a leg or for whatever reason couldn't drive. But I think it would be important to make sure that that increased flexibility to attend meetings is not abused. And I think there has to be quite strong rules around when that remote, the ability to attend remotely is actually used. And again, I'm not sure at the moment about proxy voting while you're joined remotely. I think there is the opportunity for others maybe in a meeting if you're joining remotely to maybe sway the way one votes. Thank you.
Councillor Addison, you next.
Thank you, Chair. I much prefer face-to-face meetings rather than virtual meetings because I think you get more debate that way than when you're doing it online. And I agree with Councillor Marks about proxy voting. I think that's open to abuse. Thank you.
I have to agree with you about proxy voting because when the public are watching us, they can see which way we vote. If you have a proxy vote, you don't see which way the person voted. So proxy voting, not so sure.
Well, I agree with you, Chair, because during the debate you may change your mind. You may come to the meeting thinking one way, but the debate may sway you.
That's another reason why proxy voting is dubious, yes. Online, further questions for that direction or comments?
Yeah, hi, Chair. I'm just sort of thinking that when we're discussing this, when we talk about meetings that are sort of online, are we looking at hybrid meetings as well? So is there a bit in this where it's sort of like a mixture of the two? So and my other question would be, is that facility also going to, or that service also going to be available to members of the public? So we have members of the public that come and speak at some of our meetings, but potentially can't come because they have commitments with work or family or the timing of the meeting. So I could potentially see the benefit of that, members of the public speaking, online, so that we could then get their input and make decisions based on that. So yeah, just that really, just a thought.
I think you've got a very good point. Online meetings give the public a greater opportunity for involvement, and that on itself is a big plus. Councillor Watts.
Yeah, we have to move with the times. And agree about the public participation opportunities for there. And my only concern is the perfect world. And we know that it doesn't always work perfectly. So what happens if kind of an important speaker is not able, their internet connection is down? So there's that situation may impact a meeting. So that's my concern about it.
Did you want to come in next? Then I've got Councillor Lorman, then Councillor Maxwell.
I mean, we're a unitary authority, so we cover quite a big part of the population, but the only technology that we've got available to cater for that is here in Corby. So I do wonder about other authorities that are maybe smaller, the costs that will be involved in having the uptake of the technology. But I do think we do need to move with the times. I think the only council meeting I've missed out of this whole since I was elected was the one where I broke my leg. So if I was able to have come in online on that, but I would have done. But I do think that in-person meetings should be the default and this should be the exception rather than it being when we're all tuning in our pyjamas, for example, like people did in COVID. So.
It's interesting you commented on that. I looked at the costs recently. It costs about 120,000 to wire up this. But you can now, from what I can see, do it for about 3,000 or 4,000, which is cheap enough that even parish councils can afford it. Councillor Lorman.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I agree with Councillor Addison. I think the important thing is we're open and transparent, and I think that's best done in an open forum, face-to-face. You can still broadcast the meeting, as we do, to people, and you presumably could even allow input from members of the public by Zoom or Teams or whatever it is. The devil's always in the detail, isn't it, though? And you can counter the proxy thing by allowing substitutes, which we do in certain circumstances. The things that worry me are the unreliability of the technology, particularly Teams. Zoom seems to be more reliable because it uses lesser bandwidth, but regularly we have people who can't get on and drop off and sound can't be heard. The other thing is people turning their camera off. How do you know who else is in the room? How do you know who else is listening to it and guiding people? So if this did happen, I think there would have to be rules about the camera. I mean, we all live in the area, so I don't think travel is too big. And I think if you do go down this, there ought to be a minimum number that are in the room, because one of the questions asks a percentage, doesn't it? So it ought to be. I'm also concerned, I'm not sure how we're going to respond as a council, because this has already been running for a month. And we've only got an 8-week gap, so and we're running into Christmas, so I'm not sure how we formulate our answers. Having said that, I prefer the openness. For some occasions, things like joint committees with in one case 11 councillors I can think of, the travelling involved in that is quite dramatic, and so maybe joint committees are something that might benefit from being able to be done online, but broadly I prefer face-to-face.
Councillor Maxwell.
Well, my first question would be that not everybody, although people expect them to, not everybody actually has the internet. You know, a lot of people don't have the internet because it's expensive, so that actually leaves them out. Equally, the other issue is that it mentions NCAL. So NCAL is an organisation, but not every parish council or town council is part of NCAL. So that actually leaves them out, actually. And I think that because of the way it's organised, I feel that there was one Zoom meeting that the council had recently with 350 people. I mean, how do you have a meeting with 350 people and they all participate and they're going to participate? You never get through it. I mean, and this was written up, but at the end of the day, 350 people, you'd be there until the next day. you know, if everybody took part in that. So I think it limits the numbers who can actually really, if you're opening it up to the floor, that they can actually address the questions. That would be my worry.
That would be up to the chairman of the meeting to pick a representative sample of the members of the public who wanted to speak, rather than all of them. That's a question of good chairing. Almost everybody's had a chance to speak. Councillor Maxwell, do you want to come back again?
Yes, I think you were going to say something about NCAL, weren't you?
Chair, if I may just come in on a few of those points. For Councillor Riley's comment around public engagement and whether this would be hybrid, this is very much would be a local decision. At this point, it is just whether the legislation will be amended to allow attendance remotely or those proxy meetings. What we would envisage, should the legislation change, would be that we would bring a further paper to this meeting and then present it to full council that would present those options. So we would look at potentially, would full council be one where you would run it as a hybrid? Would members support it being in person only, or a blend where speakers could attend, or by exception, similar to the example that Councillor Keane gave, where he had a broken leg but would have been able to attend remotely in that instance. So I think that those are issues that we would look to weave out should the legislation changes. Around speakers not being able to attend and cameras being on and meetings having high levels of engagement, which would be welcome in some respects. Again, that can be governed through the chair, but also through our meeting procedure rules. Those things would have to be changed in our constitution, and again, that would be a decision for this council to make. In relation to how far-reaching this consultation is, as Councillor Maxwell pointed out, in the report there is a reference to NCALC and that we would look to alert them to this consultation. The National Association of Local Councils have also been made aware of this same consultation, but we felt it would be important to just raise it with our local body as well. And we have had previous assurances, and I've got no reason to question this would be otherwise, that they do circulate those comms, especially on our request, with those outside of the membership. So we know that there are 2 or maybe 3 outside of the membership, and we could specifically ask for that if members had those concerns on that. What you'll also see in the report is there is an intention to alert members about this consultation through the member bulletin. So as councillors, please, you may wish to respond to this directly as individual councils, or raise it with your town and parish councils that you already sit on those bodies too.
Yeah, I would suggest that if the legislation goes through, that a subgroup of this committee be formed, a representative one, to discuss how it would be applied on this council, and so that rules could be produced that could subsequently go through this committee, then to full council, such as a requirement that cameras do not be switched off at any point during the debate. If you switch your camera off during the debate, you can't vote, things like that. Those are the sort of things that would need to be addressed. But it would need a group sitting down, a working group, and thrashing through the issues with advice from officers before it comes back to this committee. And I would expect that group to meet a number of times and test out a number of ideas and talk to their colleagues in their group, in their political groups, about the ideas, so that by the time it gets to committee and then full council, it has a wide range of support. Not that something that's just pulled out of thin air and then surprises the rest of the council. That seems to me to be the best approach to dealing with it if the legislation emerges. Now, the recommendation... Councillor Maxwell.
Sorry, you were going back and saying that the cost of actually having it so that the public can hear what we're actually saying has now gone down.
Not just hear, can see.
Pardon? And seen, yeah.
There are now
Yeah.
video systems that are down to about, I've seen them under £3,000, but I'm not sure how good those ones are.
Do you not think it's time that Thrapston, Kettering and Wellingborough have this facility rather than we all, so it's evenly spread out than we're coming backwards and forwards?
When we hold area planning meetings at Wellingborough, one of these little ones on the desktop that big does precisely that already.
But it's not over in Thrapston and Kettering.
I have spoken to the Democratic Services Officer to ask what model it is that's used there and suggested that we can fan it out to the other parish councils. Is that not correct, Mr. Smith? I did raise it with you. I said that I had raised with you the subject of these mini camera systems that broadcast an entire room, and asked you to look into which model it was that they're using at... Yes.
You did, yes, just before the meeting, yes.
I'm ahead of you.
Personally, I do think, I spoke to a parish council last week in Woodford, and they're not linked to NCAL, and they just feel that they would like to have more say rather than being just left out. I think there is an issue that NCAL thinks that they dominate the parish and town councils, where in fact people find them very expensive to belong to them.
Hopefully we will see a revolution in the next couple of years. The technology's there, the money's there, just the will needs to be there. Right, we have the recommendations, and they are in 3.1. A, to note the government consultation on the subject of remote meetings and proxy voting. B, to provide views on the consultation to inform the response to be submitted on behalf of the council, this council that is, to the consultation. I think we've done that as well. And this is the one where it was actually a decision to be made by this committee, and that is to delegate authority to the monitoring officer in consultation with the chair of Democracy and Standards to submit the response on behalf of the authority based on the consensus view. Now, I would like to emphasise that I'll be wearing my hat in an apolitical manner here. I will be representing the views of both sides of the chamber on this, and anything that you feel needs to be put in, write to me, and I will do my best to ask the monitoring officer to make sure that's taken into account. With that proviso, which I want minuted, please, can I have a proposal that we accept this? A seconder? All those in favour? Right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, that is unanimous.
Sorry, Chairman, can I just ask, how are you going to take account of the views of the people who are members of this council but are not here and who are going to get this letter? I don't know when it's going out, the bulletin, but you'll have to take their views, and there have to be responses to that as well.
I will give you a one-word answer to that. Yes. It will be. We will seek the views of the whole council, not just this committee, not just people who are in one political group or anything. It's got to be a consensus, because when you go to something as fundamental as this, where you're proposing to change the constitution, it must be a consensual decision. You can't even do it on just a small majority. If you like, it's got to be a super majority. Right, does that make you feel happier? Right, well, there's no other items on the agenda, so I hereby declare this meeting closed, and I'd like to thank everyone.